There are two different types of people in society, ones who complain about the problems in society and others who identify the problems and decide to become solutions. My name is Dorothy Editor-in-Chief and I am the founder of Law City. Law City was founded in 2019 to provide future lawyers with access and information to the legal industry through connecting them to leading professionals in the city. I graduated out of uni with a first-class degree in law. However, I realized that although I had excelled academically, this was not enough for me to gain access into the legal industry. When applying for firms, I realized that I was underprepared, uninformed, and had a lack of understanding of what it took to become a lawyer in comparison to my friends who had attended Russell Group universities or those who had had access to the legal industry from a young age. Through speaking to other young people in my community, I realized that this lack of insight was a common issue. Law City is therefore the avenue for that young boy or girl from Peckham who is interested in a legal career, however has no clue of what a law firm or a chambers looks like. What we do is we hold monthly events and deliver interactive workshops which will allow students to engage in discussions which will build their legal careers. Follow us, Law City, on Instagram, at Law City on Twitter, and Law City on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. By way of introduction, my name is Vanessa Torgbor, and I am your host for today's session. I will be leading a session on sending the corporate ladder down, where I hope you can take away some great tips and advice from our 5 beautiful ladies who are all here and all pioneering across a range of different industries. Before we start, I would love to encourage you all to please send your questions through, and near the end of the session, we will answer any questions that you have directly. So I'm very keen to showcase how incredible each and every one of these ladies are. So we are going to start with some introductions. I would love for you all to just introduce yourself and then let me know what you currently do and how you got into your industry. So can we make a start with Maria, please? If you just take yourself off mute, please.
Mute. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much, Vanessa, and really a pleasure to be here. And amongst, Aprileen and Brita and Dorothy, and I'm just in awe of just this video, and I'll touch on that later. And I think, Dorothy, what you're doing is amazing, and I applaud you. Get the chance to find out a little bit more about this. Sorry, long introduction. My name is Maria Hvorostovsky. I'm the founder and CEO of HBO Search, which is an executive search firm. And we work at the intersection of creativity, retail, and digital. So we work with consumer clients to help find senior talent internationally. So we tend to work at director level, so head of marketing, head of digital, CEO, MD positions also. And I've been doing that for 8 years.
Amazing. Can we now go to Aprileen? Introduce yourself, please.
Sure, thanks, Vanessa. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today. My name is Aprileen Alexander, and I'm a C-suite finance business partner. I work across a lot of corporates and big names like Unilever, Fernandez, and most recently at Warner Music. On the side, I'm the founder of a collective WOTC. It's founded for Black and women of color. I also create a community here in the UK and within Europe for this demographic of females to get together, to connect, to tell our stories, and to aid and career progression. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Can we go to Brita? Could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, hello. It's so lovely to be here. I'm super excited to be part of this panel. And Vanessa, thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me. My name is Brita, and I'm an author of a recently published book. And I also am the executive director of an organization called Women for Women International. And I am a woman who is passionate about inspiring other women to follow their fear.
Yes, I spoke to you briefly yesterday, and it was so amazing, all the amazing work that you are doing, especially with your book. Can we go to Dorothy? Please introduce yourself. We saw that wonderful video, but let us hear from you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I'm so happy to be here, like all the ladies have said. My name is Dorothy Editor-in-Chief. I am the founder of Law City, which is a platform that connects aspiring lawyers from law I'm also a researcher and inclusion lead at an executive search firm called Frida Search. So that's just me.
Amazing. You all sound great. And I think what I love the most about this panel is that we've got a range of different industries. We've got a range of you at different levels. So it's just going to be great to just delve in and hear your stories and hear about the great things that you are doing. So yeah, let's start. Let's get straight into some questions. I think it would be great if we hear from Brita first. I know you're very passionate about women to the point that you coach them literally on a daily basis. And I know you went to the University of Sussex, just like me, and you've done a master's in women's studies. So what for you was your first win that made you confident that you were doing the right thing and literally dedicating all of your time to helping women on a full-time basis?
That's such a, I don't think I've ever been asked that specific question. And I don't think I've ever posed myself that question, because I had this passion within me from when I was 15 years old, when I moved from Germany to Venezuela. And I witnessed extreme poverty and how it affects women so disproportionately, directly. And I also started to experience gender inequality in my own life. And it just ignited this passion within me that meant that I decided to pursue a career in helping women. And I say career in inverted commas because for me, it's all about my purpose. And I realized very early on that I wanted to use my energy and passion to create change. And so I've been lucky enough to find different ways in which to do that. And as you said, Vanessa, I mentor women, I coach women, through my work, I try and support women. And I think sorry, there's this whistling in the background. I don't know whether that's really okay. It's fine now. So I've never posed myself that question as a win, but I've always followed my heart, and that for me is the most important thing. And maybe you could call that a win. So yeah.
I think it's great that you followed your heart, especially on a day-to-day basis, that you're doing the things that are most passionate and dear to your heart. I think it makes things easier when you're in love with your work and you're in love with what you do. So that sounds amazing. That sounds great. I'm going to head over to Maria. I know that you made mention of your executive search firm called HVO that you have been running for 8 years now. Tell us a bit more about your company and what your experience has been like with seniors. It can be females, it can be males, but what is your experience been like with them? Were you helped along the way through mentorship, or did you start your business all by yourself and just decided to go ahead with it? Let us know.
Thank you for that question. And it's absolutely 100%. I would not have been able to start it without support and mentorship of the people in my life. I mean, I've always wanted to do something myself for the freedom and, to be able to kind of call my own shots, but to just go out there, and especially at a relatively young age when I started, is tough when you don't have necessarily the acknowledgement of someone, or someone says, yes, you can do it, I can support you. And I actually had several male mentors that helped me along the way, both with the verbal kind of words of encouragement, but also with practical help. So, advice and support and making the right connections. And it was incredible to have that. But I was also very lucky in the sense that when I entered headhunting, which was 15 years ago, and the companies that I have worked with have predominantly been led by women. And it's this role model, so you can see that actually, yes, it's possible. Within sort of recruitment industry as a whole, there's a lot of women in there. And I think it makes you also think, well, you know, if they can do it, I can do it too. And which is, for me personally, it's so important to encourage as many women to continue on this path of, you know, getting to the top of their game. Because I see with the pandemic, you know, it's a crisis for, you know, female you know, gender equality, because, you know, just so many jobs are affected that have women in it, retail, hospitality. So for women to remain in those positions, to then reach the certain level where they can become role models for the next generation, I think it's absolutely essential. And which is why I think mentoring and supporting others is, you know, is good. But when I mentioned that I had male mentors, what I encourage everyone to do, if you do, you know, if you have a mentor already, go to them and say, you know, do you know anybody else? I think having diversity, both from gender, you know, culture, you know, skin color, thoughts, you know, ideas is really important. So that's my, you know, my experience. As I said, I couldn't do it with other people. We can't do it without other people. We're not alone.
I definitely agree with you. We need other people sometimes. We cannot do it by ourselves. And it's so lovely to hear that you had your male allies there to help mentor you along the way, and ensure that you were going to do amazing within the industry. So that's lovely to hear. Brita, I know you coach on a daily basis, and that's what you're all about. You're all about empowering people. You're all about helping people. And literally, if it's not for that extra help, if it's not for that mentorship, then people can't get to places that they felt like they can go to without that help. So it's definitely great that we've got people there to help and extend that hand. Okay, so our next question will be for Dorothy. We heard about your excellent initiative that is created to help young people get into law. So can you just tell us a bit more about what you're doing with Law City, and how you are helping people combat the odds against them in the law industry?
Yeah, so Law City, as I said earlier, is a platform that connects aspiring lawyers from low socioeconomic backgrounds the legal sector in London. And it actually came because I had personally struggled due to the background that I came from. So I grew up in Croydon and I had to work 4 days a week from the age of 16, which meant that although I was predicted to get 3 A's at A-levels, I actually didn't get that and didn't get to go to a Russell Group university. But it's funny that I can actually relate to something Maria said, because at the time, I actually visited my careers advisor. And in my head, I wanted to go to Durham, Warwick, Cambridge, and Oxford. Those were the universities that I wanted to go to. But she actually looked at me and said to me, be realistic. And that dampened my confidence at the time and meant that I just decided to go to any university that I knew that I could get into. But why that's important is that during my LPC, I had a lot of young people come up to me and say that they were interested in the legal industry. But I asked them, do you know what a law firm looks like? What sort of sector do you want to get into? And they had no idea that there was such a thing as different sectors or even what a law firm looked like. So the whole reason why I created Law City was to connect those people from low socioeconomic backgrounds who wanted to explore a career in law to leading professionals within that industry. And we do that through various events where people can get an understanding of different sectors. We also have student ambassadors who get to learn and develop through helping us plan our events or build the commercial awareness through writing our blogs. But then also I have a lot of people contact me daily asking what university they should go to, what subjects do I think they should pick. And what that allows me to do is to provide them that advice that I didn't get as an A-level student, and to provide them hope and to build their aspirations and just to allow them to expand their mindsets. So that's what Law City does. It sort of devalues the limitations that are placed on aspiring lawyers from low socioeconomic backgrounds.
That's amazing, Dorothy. I really honor you. I honor the fact that you've seen challenges and you're really just there to try and make a difference and help people along the way to get to the top. So you're doing amazing there. And Law City sounds great. Everyone should go and check it out on social media. I'm sure you can send us your handles at the end of this session.
Yes, sorry. Can I jump in and add something, or I will wait until everyone's finished? Because I was really touched by Dorothy's video. I don't know you. I haven't come across you before. And my heart goes out to you, having, you know, such dreams and aspirations and just being put down and not having those opportunities. And it was actually making me like tearful, and I really feel for you and everyone who is in that position. And I'm really saddened to hear that, when you kind of say, oh, I want to go here, but actually, oh, let's be realistic. I think it's terrible. It's just terrible. And I think what you're doing is actually, taking that and creating something out of it, which is helping the world. But my last point is when it comes to also educating my clients to make sure that they do have diversity within their teams, is to actually not consider people just based on the universities they go to, because they're massively missing out on that for that exact reason that you're saying. So that's just my point here. So I'll stop.
Honestly, Dorothy's the best. I love the way that you're honestly just providing hope to everybody. It's honestly needed. So I definitely agree with you there, Maria. Okay, so we will go on to Aprileen next. Aprileen, I know you have worked for an array of different large organizations. Talk to us about your journey in these companies, and talk to us also about how you're currently involved with helping women in color become more of a force within their industries.
Sure. So I am a chartered accountant, and unlike the normal parts of accountants where you stick to one industry, I have spanned about 5 or 6 industries now. My aim, I've always loved numbers, and I was always fascinated by how companies spend their unit of currency, because from a finance point of view, how a company spends a pound, a dollar, a euro, a yen indicates their priorities within a business. And as a finance business partner, getting to know that intimate knowledge in different industries is something that I was fascinated by. And also it just makes me, and it has made me, and it's a strength now that I have, made me more agile in terms of embedding in companies. Because I've worked at so many, I can, seamlessly fit into almost any industry now, because I've done it so many times. And it's also something that I find quite challenging. And it's like a new company and a new job to me is like a Rubik's Cube, is a problem to be solved. And if you spend time, there's a book called The First 90 Days of a Job. I can't remember who it's written by, but I always recommend it to people. It might be a little bit outdated now, but it's an excellent book, because the first 90 to 100 days is really super important, and it sets you up for success. And it was also a piece of advice given to me by a manager at BNP Paribas when I was leaving. He said, people always underestimate how important the first 100 days in a job is. And I guess if I had to give one piece of advice or trick at navigating new corporate spaces, I can't remember who told me this. I'm from Trinidad, and it must have been somebody, probably one of my first managers in Trinidad. I always look for the person who has been there the longest. If you walk into your team, there's always somebody who's been there the longest, who's part of the institution, part of the furniture. Talk to that person. Not only do they know where all the bones are buried, but they also know the culture of an organization. And the culture of an organization differs to the culture of a department. And I feel as though sometimes people go into jobs and they don't recognize that. So talk to the person who's been there the longest. Get to know them on a personal level. Don't make it disingenuous. Try to, cultivate a relationship with them, a professional one, at least, because that person would help you settle in a lot more quickly. They would know the changes within that organization and that department, and they'd be able to save you from a lot of the pitfalls that you don't hear about in the books that you read or what your friends tell you, or you don't have the inside knowledge. So that's one tip that has served me really well in navigating these large corporate spaces. And a few years ago, I was given a talk whilst I was at Louboutin, and a young woman came up to me And she said, oh, I didn't think people like you worked in spaces like Louboutin. And I was like, what? People like me? She goes, like somebody with your hair and, you know, who looks like you. And I said, what? I mean, I have never, no day at Christian Louboutin did I ever feel as an outsider, you know, with the way that I looked. And, you know, I was going through my natural transition then, like, you know, I just felt like I was April working at Louboutin. I was, you know, I wasn't April the girl with natural hair, and like I wasn't a diversity hire or a tick. So I was just taken aback. But then it got me thinking that I've come from a society where we see women who look like me. I'm Trinidadian, and I grew up seeing women like me on TV all the time, right? You know, up and down the Caribbean. So then you move here as an adult and then you don't see it. And, you know, people, young girls don't have those examples. So my aim is to not only try to change that, but also to tell the stories of women of color who look like me, Black women and women of color. Elaine Welterweight, she said something in her book a few months ago. She said, there's so much wisdom in the stories, in the untold stories of women. And that's my aim. My aim is to unlock that wisdom in the untold stories of Black women and women of color so that organizations and experiences such as like what Dorothy has become Dorothy had and what the mentees that she's meeting are having becomes the exception rather than the norm. So that's what drives me.
That sounds amazing. I definitely took a mental note with what you said, that your manager who mentioned that you need to go to the person that's been at the organization the longest. You will honestly get your best tips and your best advice. So I'll definitely be doing the same and taking on that advice. It's also amazing to hear about the great things that you're doing within your network and helping young people. I think it's situations where someone can literally come up to you and say that they don't think that you would work here. It's such an eye-opener for you and literally just changes everything. So I'm glad that you took that experience, ran with it and tried to do something different and make a change with that. So that sounds great. Okay, so we are now also joined with the wonderful Abba Anderson. Thank you for joining us, Abba. Please, can you just introduce yourself to the audience and let the audience know how you got into your industry and what you're currently doing?
Amazing. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Abba Anderson, as Vanessa has very so kindly introduced me today. I'm 27 years old and I work at Goldman Sachs, which is a leading global investment bank. That's been my only ever job. So straight out of uni, that's where I've been working. I used to work primarily within the foreign exchange arena, but now I work more with the regulation. So any regulation that comes out in the financial industry, it would then be my role to then decide what that means for our firm and for our clients. So in terms of how I got into the industry, my journey is different from the normal corporate banking journey. Normally, when you think of banking, you think, okay, you've got to have this internship, that apprenticeship, all manner of things, but mine was completely the opposite. In fact, I actually made my CV in order to enter Goldman Sachs. So before I started university, I didn't even have a CV. Unfortunately, my mates were going to work and get normal jobs, but I was just at home. I think I was just too lazy at the time. So that was kind of my journey. And I just actually thought that I didn't even think about a world of banking, because sometimes when you think of banking, it's quite a scary arena for many. And me at the time, I just wanted a very simple life, a very easy life. But I met a person on the way and said one thing to me, and this is something I say to everyone I meet because that's what actually pushed me into the arena of banking. So I met a young person at an event. At this event, you had all the people that knew all manner of English, and I was just this little girl, didn't have a clue. I just met someone from Goldman. They were like, "Oh, so we applied to Goldman?" And I looked at them and they looked at me, and I looked at them again and they looked at me, and I was just like, no, because people from where I'm from do not end up in banking. But then he was like to me, your limit is wherever you set your limit to be. And that's something that resonated with me, because normally circumstances around us where we've come from, just people that think a certain way, that influences our decision making, especially in career. And the people around me, we didn't want to be bankers or didn't want to aspire to top positions. So that being in banking or working for the best investment bank in the world was not something that crossed my mind at all. So for me, one important lesson that I learned actually was the power of the people around you. That in every circle you are in, you always have to almost be the weakest person in that circle, because having people around you that are constantly making you think bigger, constantly pushing you to the next limit is actually what will inspire you to do more. So that's actually what inspired me to apply for a firm like Goldman. And I don't know why, but they picked me. So I always tell the stories up until today, because at the point I had no work experience. I didn't have a clue. I didn't speak the best English at the time. But what that lesson actually showed me was, firstly, the power of having the people around you, but secondly, always trying to just shoot your shot, in other words. Many a time we may think that we're not good enough, we might not have the necessary qualifications, or there's better people than us. But what I learned from that experience, and what I continue to learn, is actually you never know until you've tried. So the first step is actually trying. And even if you try and your attempt is not the most successful, at least you've tried, and that's the starting point. But what happens to many of us is that we actually don't even try. We don't take the first step. So then we never know where we actually could get. So my advice I say to many people and to anyone listening today is just try. Because the worst that will happen is someone tells you no. And even if someone tells you no, okay, but then at least you can then try something else. So that was my interesting journey into banking. It's been an interesting journey so far. I've nearly been at Goldman for 5 years. I've learned a lot of things around the way. I've learned how to write professional emails, because believe it or not, when I started, I didn't even know it has to be worded a certain way. But these are the little tips you learn along the way. But honestly, it's been an amazing journey so far. My journey's been quite peculiar to many. And I always reiterate that story to let people know it doesn't really matter where you've come from or where you've started, but there's always a space that can be created for those that just decide to push and create a new space. So for me, I always tell people, okay, you might want to employ someone from Oxford or Cambridge, and that's completely fine. But I'm a young girl that didn't go to any of those universities, but over the years, I've been able to have this success, that success. So I then act as a bridge between two worlds, a world that might have isolated a certain group of people and a group of people that might have been isolated. And then through me, they're able to come in, and I'm able to show that template to others. So that's my story.
Honestly, that's amazing. I think it just goes to show that you don't necessarily need to go to the Oxfords or the Cambridge. Abba, you sound excellent. It sounds like you're thriving in your career in Goldman. And it honestly shows that I'm so happy that the recruiters took a chance with you, regardless of the fact that you didn't have any work experience. You're doing amazing. You're doing great. Brita, I could see you nodding across with Abba with all of the points that she was saying. Is there any point that you want to add on there? I know you was getting excited.
Yeah, I really was, because I just agree with that so much. Based on my experience working with women, and I'm so passionate about helping women unfold their potential, is that one of the biggest barriers is our mindset, right? Is that we think we won't be able to cope with failure, and then we don't even try. And that's why I was like nodding so deeply, because I think it's wonderful to hear you talk, Abba, and I can only say this. But the other thing is also that obviously it's really important to know that there will be people who believe in you and who are your cheerleaders, right? Like the person that you described, Abba, and that's. I'm so passionate, and I said this to you, Vanessa, when we spoke, sisterhood is a choice.
Yeah, definitely.
And I choose sisterhood every day, and I want to, help women, and I want to be their cheerleaders, and I think we can all do that for each other. So, yeah.
Definitely. Abba, I just wanted just to add on another question there about what you're doing in Goldman. Are you by any chance involved in any particular projects or any networks where you're able to meet an array of different people? What exactly are you doing outside of work? I think you're mute.
Okay, you can hear me now, yeah? Perfect. So yeah. I actually do a lot of stuff at work. I think my colleagues always ask me, but how do you find the time? And I think for me, it's because of what I prioritize in life. I prioritize helping people because I was once helped. So I'm on a number of boards at Goldman. I'm on the firm-wide Black Network Europe. And I'm also on the Operations Black Network Europe. And what we do is we help and provide recruiting opportunities for other Black individuals to get them inside the firm, but also those within the firm, and we help their progression. And the reason for me why that's so important at Goldman is simply because of my story. I think naturally, when we think of diversity, you think about, okay, let me just still go to the top unis, but then let me just target the ethnic minorities within that uni. But diversity is much bigger than that. And for what I've pitched to Goldman is the fact that there's a large actually pool of people, almost untapped, and people that are missed by society, people that society would have a certain way, people that society will say may not be good enough or might not have the qualifications. But for me, my main game within those departments is to now say, no, there's a huge pool of people that if they just have the right mentorship, the right lessons about leadership, the right lessons about the soft skills, they can actually be the next leader tomorrow. So it's not just about, it's about when you think about diversity and progression and building the next generation of bankers, it goes beyond just a diversity tick box. It goes about people understanding that no, with the right time, literally holding people by hand, not looking at mentorship as, oh, let me have a few meetings with you like 3 times within the year, because that's how normally the mentorship relationship works, right? You've got 1 meeting each quarter. But for me, mentorship is actually taking people by hand. And that's what I do within the programs at work. I just say, no, let's actually sit down with them. That might mean you have to sit with them several times a week, but that's how I was able to develop. I can tell you one story about a young lady. She actually came straight from Nigeria, never been in London. And as you can imagine, people that come from other countries often have quite cultural struggles. And often managers said, okay, this is going to be a huge project for her to get up to speed. But I said, no, it's not that. So through her, I was actually able to say, no, let me sit down with her. Manager, it's okay, let me take her on. I took her on. I sat down with her several times a week, teaching her the soft skills people don't actually tell people about. Stuff like, okay, you can actually be a leader from day one as you step into the office. You don't have to wait to become a manager, but you can be a leader within your small role that you're given. Be the best at it, be sharp at it. And within a short space of time, she actually was targeted by a manager from the managing director from the front office team. Her new role is she's earning a lot of money. I'm looking at her thinking, this one, she's earning so, but it's more than that. For me, it's being able to empower a young lady that might have thought her journey would have been long. But through the right mentorship, we've been able to see that, no, this is someone that someone might have looked at and thought, okay, they might not be able to make it, but through mentorship, I've been able to you can actually become different from these things. And that's just one example of many that have happened in Goldman. And that's my main agenda, to almost raise an elite kind of employee. Someone that, can be intelligent, but someone that understands leadership, and understands that they can actually keep the limits in the industry. And because many people feel that within their work,
I think we're losing you. If you could just...
I think there was a lot of feedback.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry about that.
Don't worry, I was using the example of a young lady, and I was saying she's now got a very good job in a front office position. She's actually it's called a technology trader. That's actually the new generation of traders. It's called traders that code. And for many have actually understand that thesis before. But for me, it's about creating a new elite kind of employee that those that you can be intelligent, but you also understand leadership and understand mentorship, but you also understand helping others. And that's why we're able to continue to build a community of people that are not just employees that go there and come home, but employees that can actually make a change, employees that can actually innovate, and employees that continue to build a bigger community. So that's all I do. If you want to summarize that, I help people, and I help people become the best version of themselves.
A helper of people. I'm definitely seeing the same qualities in each of the women on the panel. So I think this is a great mix to have, just because we're all out here to help people. We're all here to help people climb this ladder. We're all in it together. And I definitely see that in each and every one of you. Just a reminder to those who are watching, please feel free to ask any questions directly to our panelists. So for the sake of time, we're just going to move on to Maria. So Maria, obviously, because of the pandemic, there has been a lot of challenges that people are facing in this industry, especially in terms of finding work, changing their career, starting their career. What advice can you give to our audience in terms of being able to distinguish themselves in the job process?
Yes, I think, Vanessa, that's an excellent question. Obviously, a lot of people right now are, thinking about, their next steps. There's redundancies, people are at home, working from home. Perhaps their employers have not been as empathetic and compassionate to them as they would have hoped. But I think there's a lot of industries in which women are the predominant workforce have been massively impacted. So you're looking at retail, hospitality, especially where, there's part-time work, which is a lot of women are in that. And obviously, my biggest concern is that, especially for women, will become disillusioned with the whole thing and just decide maybe not to even return at the same level as they were before. And that will be an absolute crisis for women. I mean, we're talking about, putting gender equality back. Some say 25 years, some say 100 years. In any case, we have to work 2 times, 3 times as hard to be able to actually, catch up on the progress that we have made so far. I mean, there's lots of reasons for it, but, for the reasons of time, I won't go into it. But in terms of, what you can do now and how to kind of distinguish yourself, I would say there's 3 things that I say that are essential in leaders, in people, in sort of keeping up with what's going on in the workforce. And that's being self-aware, so self-understanding and self-management. So having the self-awareness about what do you actually want and where do you want to go. The second is social intelligence, so understanding other people, societies, and having a little bit of a kind of a bigger view of what's going on. And then the third thing is continuous learning and application of that. And this is something I'm seeing a lot during the pandemic, because it has given some people, not everyone obviously, the opportunity to actually do something with their time, because we're not going out in the evenings. We do have some time that we can sort of dedicate to that. And so if I go one by one, so in terms of, number one, self-understanding. So, if you're out of a job, or you're considering a change of careers, or you're just starting in the first place, take a look at your CV. And what I say is take a look, start from scratch, put everything aside and just build it from the ground up, and keep it really, really clear in terms of what do you want, what are you good at, and what achievements that you have had so far. Don't think of your CV as the history of your life. Think of it as something that will open the door, and put the keywords in there. I can talk about CVs until the cows come home, but I won't. But really, really be clear about what it is that you're trying to do. And it's this process of, becoming self-aware and understanding where you're going with it. And the second one is the social intelligence piece. And this, I think, is really important. And I think for my culture, we're used to it. In America, even more so, that you just go out there. But what Abba and Aprileen were saying, and Dorothy as well, that when you're not surrounded by role models, or not enough of them, you don't really know that it exists or it's there. But sometimes when you do surround yourself with those people, you're like, oh my God, this is possible. I can see it. It's a person in my image, or, they're opening a door for me. But use your friends, your colleagues, go on Facebook and look for people who you haven't spoken to for ages and see what they're doing now. Maybe they can help you. And also ask. And this is really, really important. This is what Abba was saying. So just try. Just ask, are you looking to hire yourself? Do you know someone who is hiring? Can you put me in touch with this person? But again, be extremely clear about what you want to get out of it. Don't expect the other person to somehow read your mind and also say, okay, in 10 days time, they're going to think of it for you. Follow up. Take it into your own hands and be proactive. And then the last part, the continuous learning. I think in order to keep up with any industries, we just have to continuously evolve. I mean, you're looking at some of the jobs that are just going to be completely redundant, and how will you stand out? And I think the self-learning, which is what really coming across a lot from, all of the panelists here, is what really sets you apart. And I look at employers, and that's becoming really, really key, especially to ensure that you're not just looking for people like for like, that you're actually looking for people who have proven themselves in other ways than just by going to the elite universities, by going to elite, companies, because they're on that path already. So continuous learning, and surround yourself with mentors. And if that's not enough, then get in touch with any of us. And
I love that, Maria. Those are some excellent tips, especially what you said on continuous learning. We all need to carry on developing ourselves, and especially whilst we have extra time in the pandemic, literally all of the industries that we're in, there's always stuff to learn and always ways for us to get ahead. So definitely one that I definitely agree with you on there. So we are now going to head over to Brita for another question. As the director of Women for Women International and an author for your book, Face to Face, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges that women are facing in their career? And if you had one piece of advice from your book, what would you give out to us?
Thank you, Vanessa. It's so hard, isn't it? This subject is one that I think all of us are so passionate about, and I think we could spend so much longer talking about this, and it definitely deserves so much more time. I just wanted to build on something that Maria just said, and I would add to those three. I would add, take some time to find meaning. Ask yourself what matters to you and how you want to matter. And this goes back to what I said earlier about purpose. That can really help you to feel strong and grounded in who you are as a person. And as you go out there into the job market, there will be several jobs that will enable you to fulfill your purpose. And it gives you that backbone that when you perhaps don't succeed immediately, you still have your purpose. And you know what you're looking for, and you know the difference that you want to make. So that is something that I actually talk a lot in my book about, and I think it helps you to overcome fear, because I think one of the greatest challenges that we have, particularly as women, is that we have been conditioned in a certain way that often means that we have these questions in our heads that hold us prisoner and don't allow us to fully tap into our power. And questions like, am I a good girl? Am I good enough? Am I strong enough? And then so that question is being asked of someone out there, right? Based on some kind of measurement that we have no control over in a kind of future that hasn't happened yet. And so we need to reframe those questions and ask ourselves, what do I want? What matters to me? How do I want to matter? Because those are questions that we can get to answer. We get to decide whether whether I'm good enough or whether I'm there or not. And I get to do it right now. So that is a kind of a little snippet of what I'm trying to do in my book, to really encourage women to move from fear to fierce. Thank you.
That's amazing, Brita. We all need to support, and we all need to make sure that we get the face-to-face book and understand what Brita is saying to try and empower women across all industries. So I will definitely be buying a copy. You can hold me to that at the end of the session, Brita. So we are going to swiftly move on to Dorothy. Dorothy, I found out that you recently graduated with a distinction in your master's. So congratulations for that. It could not have been easy. But for someone that's doing Law City, that's working full time, you're starting your career, let us know of your experiences where you have had that support throughout your journey.
Yeah, so funny enough.
Okay, yeah, we can hear you, great.
Yeah, so funny enough, I've actually had help from the beginning from various communities that I'm part of, and also from various women. But I think I'll focus on two women. The first is Rachel Holmes, who is actually Chief Executive Officer of Matrix Chambers. But I met her at an event when Law City was just a vision. I had no name, I had no idea of how I was going to execute it, but I had an idea that I'd had for a few months. And after she spoke, she was so transparent. She mentioned that she has never actually been qualified for a role, but she's always been willing to go for certain roles. So I think the quote that she said was, jump off the cliff and learn how to fly on your way. But that really resonated with me because at the time I had an idea and I was scared because I didn't have the necessary experience or I didn't have the tools that I needed at the time to execute it. So I went to her after the event and I said, I love your transparency. I love what you said. And then I pitched her the idea that I had for Law City. And she actually said to me, oh, you can use my firm. You can use my firm for free. I'll speak on the panel. And if you execute it properly, I can get involved further. And I said, I think at the time when I was pitching her Law City, I was just expecting her to give me advice or tell me what I need to do. But for her to go the further step and say that I can use her firm and then also offer to be on the panel. And she is someone who's constantly engaging with everything that I do, supporting me. I think even at the event, she gave me a little pep talk. I think people started coming about an hour before the event and she just looked at me and she said, take it in. This is what you've done. You've brought so much hope and inspiration to this firm. Take it in and enjoy it, understand what you were doing. But also someone else who is Faith, who is my partner, my business partner. I think Abba mentioned before that she didn't know how to put an email together, but she didn't know how to speak properly, and that's what Faith does for me. I would have partners messaging me wanting to collaborate, or universities wanting to partner with Law City, but I'll always go to Faith and say, okay, this is what I've got, how do we make the most out of this opportunity? And she's able to tell me, okay, what are you looking for this? Think long term and consider this. So having women like that who have been able to support me has really helped me along the way. People look at me and think I'm impressive, but it's majorly due to the mentorship and the people that I've had around me who have been able to provide resources or advice or mentorship throughout my life.
That sounds great. I'm happy for you. I'm happy that you have the Rachels and the Faiths in your life, because honestly, sometimes you cannot do things alone. So it's great that even Rachel took a leap of faith and was trusting in you and trusting that you were able to pull off such an amazing event. And it's so lovely to hear that Faith spends her time with you and you all work collectively to try and make Law City the best that it can be. So that sounds amazing and I'm very happy for you. Okay, so just a reminder to the audience again, if you have any questions, please do let us know because we will be transitioning and asking your questions shortly. But now we're going to move over to Aprileen. You work in such a male-dominated industry. So I know some people can take a lot of advice from you, especially in regards to things such as gender pay gap that we hear about all of the time, or things such as promotions and getting sponsorships. Were you often supported by your peers around you? And do you have any advice in regards to those topics?
So I'll tackle the promotions first. I think at some point in time in your career, you get denied a promotion or you apply for a job and it doesn't happen, and somebody gets it, and there's invariably why this person has got it over you, and etc. And those are all valid feelings. But I always encourage people to get concrete feedback, especially if it's within an organization that you have spent a lot of time and given a lot to, or you feel as though this is where your career is meant to be for X number of years, so that you can, and that feedback needs to be tangible. I abhor airy-fairy feedback. If you tell me if you give me a piece of feedback, I want examples. You need to give me 2 or 3 examples, and I want examples. I want suggestions, and then I want a follow-up meeting in an appropriate time so that you and I can both come to some agreement that I've made progress, or if not, like, what are the next remedies? Because I am not one to wait for that annual appraisal to hear a piece of, something that happened 9 months before that, you didn't tell me. So I think one of the things about promotions is that people need to take those kind of, one of the key steps about getting and obtaining a promotion and advocating for yourself is those annual or quarterly catch-ups with your line manager. Those are very important. I've worked in companies where they kind of, if you want to, you can, but then that just leaves you open to a year-end discussion that doesn't go your way. So that's one piece of advice. Sponsorships. There's a big difference between a mentor and a sponsor, and I think that people need to know that difference quite early on in their career and understand it. It is so important, the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. And a sponsor is somebody who opens doors for you and speaks for you when, in spaces that your mentor, and in a lot of times, your line manager will not be present. And how do you get a sponsor? As it has been my experience that a sponsor is a more of an informal relationship. Nobody's, the sponsors that I've had in business is that I've worked at, they haven't been like, hey, April, I'm your sponsor. I've walked up to them and go like, hey, can you be my sponsor? That is a mentor relationship where you invite somebody, you do your due diligence to make sure that that person is right for you from a personality and a professional career point of view, and there's a fit and you get mentoring. But a sponsor is, some of the ways that you can go about getting a sponsor is to try to get on projects or extend yourself in terms of if you have a stakeholder relationship with someone, as in finance, and you hear that there's a project that is probably outside of your remit, perhaps you can help somebody who is not writing your year-end review, or who advocates for you in spaces that your boss is not. And they tend to be people who can see you from a different point of view. They know you from a professional aspect, and they can testify to your skill sets, your technical skill set. There's a lot of feedback from your side. Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you, Aprileen. Sorry.
Okay.
Please carry on.
So yeah, I think that is what that's what's worked for me, and that's the advice that I would give people. And just to follow on from the points that Maria and Brita made about, especially Maria, about the unfortunate impact of COVID with the widening of the gender pay gap in women perhaps not returning to the workplace. I really hope that as we come out of this time, that HR and the DEI function in organizations realize that they have to work together to make sure that they, put some plan, some kind of establish an ecosystem within organizations where retention and DEI come together to make sure that that gaps isn't widened, and that they take action to close it, so that we don't come out of this pandemic, worse off than we went in. And I know that we are, the last 12 months have been uncertain. But if I have a piece of advice to give young women, especially at the start of your career, establish a VEX money fund for your career. And I mean, if you're from a Black cultural background, the term of VEX money is not, especially Caribbean. VEX money is a phrase that if you go out with your friends, have your own cash. So if you guys fall out in the club, you don't need them to get back home. You have your own cash, right? I mean, in 2021, it'll be make sure that you have your own Uber or Lyft account. But I would ask young women to have a VEX fund for your career, VEX money fund for your career, and to enable you to take time out from your certain points in your career when you need to. One of my very good friends, Nina, she's always taken the summer off between jobs. I don't know how she does it, but in every job that she's moved on to, she's taken the summer off. She starts her job search, leaves the job in April, and then negotiates to start her next job in September. April, May, June, somewhere around there, she would leave, and she has the summer off. And it gives her time to kind of just like take a break and get everything off and set herself up for another job. But the only way that she could have done that is if she had the resources to do it. And for me, the times that I've taken breaks in my career when everybody is going like, oh my God, you're taking 3 months off to go traveling? Like, what's wrong with you? It's because I had the resources to do it. And I really think that for this pandemic, if you take the advice of Maria and Brita, who's come off about thinking, that social intelligence, establish some sort of intelligence around your career and, set yourself up for those times when you want to walk away from a job or you just want to break and you have the resources to do it. Establish a Vex Money Fund for your career. That's as we come out of this global pandemic, that's my advice for especially young women.
That definitely sounds good. I know we all need to focus on our well-being, especially during this pandemic. So that's some great advice there. Unfortunately, everybody, we have run out of some time, so we cannot finish off with some of the questions. However, it has been amazing to be with these incredible 5 ladies and discuss what they're doing across their industries. Please, guys, we have a next session coming up at 5 p.m, like literally straight after this session. So please do tune in. But thank you so much, Dorothy, Aprileen, Maria. Thank you so much, Brita, as well. She had to unfortunately leave us quickly because she has another event. But thank you all so much for your time. This has been incredible. And I look forward to catching up with you all later. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care.
Wonderful host. Thank you so much.